All right, welcome to another Talk Wednesday. I love Talk Wednesdays. They are my favorite day of the week. I get to have a great chat and learn something new about what all these amazing entrepreneurs in our Pursuit 365 community are up to. And I have a treat for you today. But before I introduce our guest, I would like to be sure to thank our Pursuit 365 Talk Wednesday sponsor, the amazing Leanne Miles at the Clinton Wilkins Mortgage team. Without her and her support, we couldn't be here. And of course, too, I always love to thank our founder, Shelley Lynn Hughes, for giving me the opportunity to do these and for giving us the Pursuit 365 platform to meet one another and all the rest. So today, coming to you guys from beautiful Ladner, British Columbia, I have the pleasure of introducing you to Jennifer Illsley Hall. And Jennifer, as you will see, is with her business is called Deliberate Decisions. And I found that to be a very, very interesting name. So I don't know if you can do it without being, letting it out, Jennifer, with what specifically you do yet. But how did you come up with the name Deliberate Decisions based on what you do?
Hi, by the way. Say thanks for having me. It was difficult actually coming up with a name, but there's something about the process of what I do that is liberating, and I carefully slipped the word liberate into my brand. So it's deliberate decisions, but liberate is hiding in there. And it is liberating what happens when we work together, and and everything is about choice and intentional choice. So the decisions part is around that. So yes, it was thought through.
Oh, and clearly, and again, no, because I know what you do, I I was like, oh, that's really, really clever. But I didn't put the liberate part. So that's even more brilliant. So kudos to you for that. I love it. I love it. So we won't hold you guys hostage any longer with like, what does she do? So Jennifer, what do you do? What do you do? It's better you say it in your words.
Well, my official title is professional organizer. But truthfully, what I do is I help people go through transitions in their life. Now, whether, there's a thousand different reasons for transition. And each and every one of them, sometimes you need a buddy to walk you through it, and to have somebody that is not family or friend is usually a more efficient way of working through those transitions. Family and friends have amazing good intentions of helping you, but there's a lot of dynamics that get involved and sometimes become roadblocks. So outsourcing to a professional really helps when people want to get organized for whatever reason it may be. Outsourcing is usually a more efficient way of getting there.
I love that. I love that. And what brought you to this line of work? Was there something that happened in your life, or like I'd just be sort of curious where this whole line of business entered your world and how?
So I think being organized is something that comes naturally somewhat. I live quite organized, I'm never late for anything, like I always have my list, and it doesn't mean that everything's like tickety boo all the time, but in my mind I have to be organized. And I never really thought of it as a career path, but I had a house cleaning business for over 10 years before, And along the way, people would say, could you organize this cupboard or whatever when you're here? And I would say yes to pretty much anything. If I can help someone, I'd say yes. And I'd organize a really tiny space, and then they would be so blown away. And it was confusing to me. I was like, all I did was tidy it up. That's what it felt like, because it's a natural thing for me to do that. But for them, it was a hurdle they couldn't jump over. And I started to realize that not everybody has the skill set to do what seemed like a simplistic task to me. So, people either don't have the skill set, or they haven't been shown before, or they don't have the motivation, or they are simply too busy, or sometimes they're mobily impaired. There's lots of reasons why people are not living organized. They might wish for it, but not able to and make it happen for themselves. So when this was happening every now and then through the cleaning business, I was curious if there was actually an industry for organizing, and of course there is. And when you tap into it, you start to become more aware. And of course, in the last few years, we've had a lot of sort of Netflix series depicting the home organized lifestyle. So people are much more aware of it than they used to be. So it just became more interesting to me, and I took some workshops and did some training, and I decided to close one business and just transition fully into the organizing industry. And there's been no looking back. It's been great.
Love that. I love that. And isn't it interesting how there's that organic moment where you have that aha, where
Yeah.
you realize that, like not everybody sees what I see, or not everybody, this doesn't come naturally, or this is really difficult.
Yes.
I used to teach cooking classes, and there was a lot I wouldn't say in a class, because there was so much I assumed that people already knew. And
Right.
then I realized very quickly that that wasn't the case. And what seemed so, basic and obvious to me, you'd say some of these things and like people would go, oh, like, and their minds would be blown.
Yeah.
So there's where, right, we need to embrace our skill sets and not minimize them. Because
Yes.
um yeah, when you and I come together, we could be the same, we could be completely different. But this is what makes the world go round, and not
Yes.
allow our world to get off axis.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I
And
love.
also, some people they want to know the formula to it, but there's not necessarily well, I guess there is a formula of some sorts, but being organized, living more organized, it looks so different to each individual. So you've really got to tap into how do they live their life, and you really have to get familiar with them and almost like embody their lifestyle while you're building the solutions with them and for them. Because the things that do come naturally to you and what makes sense to you isn't necessarily what's going to make sense to the next person. So I can totally relate that to the cooking, like what you're saying about teaching people to cook. My husband and I can certainly make the same dinner two different ways, because we have two different understandings of how it comes together. And it's the same for me. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So really immersing yourself in somebody's world is key. You've really got to listen to them, because if it doesn't work for them, it's just not going to work. And it's just, so it has to be set up for each person individually.
That's right. And that's the thing, right? You can't come in and have them do it your way, because that's not sustainable. That makes perfect sense to me. So there's a lot of layers to this, I'm sure. And I'm sure too that there's probably more psychology involved in what you do than maybe you were even aware of before you started.
Yeah,
Have
sure.
you come up? Am I correct in my assumption there?
Yeah, for sure. There is quite a lot of psychology, and not that I'm trained in that department at all, but I do actually have mindset coaches that will partner in and can help my clients if they really want to do a shift. If it's not just a physical one, it's more of a mental one, then I have some coaches that I refer out to, because it's ongoing work for some people. It's I mean, some people it's fine, it's simple, it's just like, I just don't have time, just fix it, I can maintain it, but just you do the front end kind of thing. But other people that are struggling to maintain, they do have some mental barriers that's tricky to push through, but there are solutions, and it can be that they just buy into a maintenance package with me, and I just come back every 3 months and just whatever kind of went sideways in 3 months, we can kind of piece it back together, but the foundation's been set. But people that really want to make that shift, there are alternative options. So yeah, the psychology is not to be overlooked.
Now, is there, for you, do you have a certain, is there such a thing as a job that's too big for you? Or are you, have you done the Everest of the organized, you know what I mean? Because,
Yeah,
everybody's got different degrees of what they feel comfortable
yeah,
attacking. So I would love to hear a little bit more about that with you, because before we hit record, you had mentioned that one of the biggest questions that you come up against, or maybe one of where people are sensitive, is am I a hoarder? And so it's that, are they prejudging, or do they have that fear of being judged, right? So they're afraid to make that initial phone call, just the same as, somebody, tries to lose 10 pounds before they call the weight loss coach, or that sort of thing. So I'd just be curious to hear how you unpack that.
yes, that does happen quite frequently, which really makes me feel quite sad, actually, because gosh, that judgment is just brutal. And but I find that when people have taken that leap of faith and reached out, I like to approach them with holding some space around that fear of the judgment, because once they get to meet me, they realize quite quickly that I'm not the one that's judging them. They're judging themselves. It's not coming from outside. So they get a sense of that right away. And I know this because they're really they're super worried about bringing me in, and they just sort of bring me into this one little space, and then we're only speaking together for 10 minutes, and by now they've took me through the whole house and shown me everything. So clearly they warm up to the idea of not having some comfort around an outsider coming. They know quickly that there's not going to be a judgment, and that I'm there to help them and there to support them. Judging them doesn't do anything for me or them. So yeah, and you know what, we all let things go sometimes, right? Like, nobody's perfect. The thing is, they've reached out, so that's like such a brave thing to do. And I've been in lots of situations. I have been in hoarding situations, and that's not my specialty, but I have been in them, and it has worked. That we've worked together, and it's we've got to some sort of resolution that they were comfortable with. But most people think just like a messy pantry equals being a hoarder, and that's just such a shame that they think that, because that's just nonsense. Our houses are for us to live in, so please do use them. And please do make a mess, it's okay. But like, when things are just like doubling down all the time, then obviously it's getting out of control, and it's a good idea to bring it back in. But yeah, a different scope of work in different houses. I mean, it's enormous. The differences are enormous. And I might go into one job just to do one tiny thing, and it just evolves into more and more and more. And it's great. I mean, I have a team of people that come with me. So in the event that there is a big job, like some estate sales will be large. It'll be the entire house that you've got to clear out. And I just bring in a team, however big of a team I need, I can tap into. I belong to a national group of organizers, and I can subcontract other organizers out of there that can come with me. And I know that they follow the same code of ethics as me, and they understand the non-judgment part of the gig, and that they know that it's, sometimes labor intensive, and they're prepared for that. So yeah, I mean, there's no job too small and there's no job too big. They all fit and they all come in timely fashion. So I'm really fortunate.
That is so interesting. And yeah, I love the fact that you're part of that bigger network. So you've always, because as a business owner, that's sometimes the hardest part, right? Like I own a sandwich shop, and you'll get a call for a catering, and there's certain jobs we just can't tackle because our team is so small.
Yeah.
And so to have that resource to tap into and to pull from that's amazing. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
it is a good resource, and I seem to have a good community around me, even aside of that, are always available to me when I find the right job, like lines up well for them. Like, I bring different people to different types of work, because some people they're just particularly good with some situations. So it's really nice that I have quite a big pool of people, and I can pick and choose who's going to be a really good fit for different situations.
Now, I was on your website earlier, and I did notice that you have a virtual offering. So, because a lot of people would, maybe they're tuning in like I am from Ontario, and they're like, oh, well, this sounds great, but, you're in BC. So, because right away when I was doing some research on you, I'm like, oh, I could maybe give her a call. I'm I'm the queen shover. I'm the cleaning lady's coming, and I will tidy up for the cleaning lady. So I'm that, open the cupboard or open the closet and shove um to get, and then you're like, then eventually the cupboard or the closet becomes so chaotic. Because I think that I'm gonna organize it or clean it after she's been to clean, and I just either pull it all back out again so I can shove it again, or so right away, it's like, do I need somebody like this in my life? Or you
Well, the
know,
virtual organizing does bridge that gap a little bit. I mean, it was really born out of COVID, the virtual stuff. I had a lady, actually, she lived, like, I could walk to her house. She lives that close. And she was like, okay, I can't have you over, but like, I really want to watch you. I think it was her walk-in closet. She said, I really want to fix it. So we was just like, okay, well, virtual organizing has become a thing. I have no idea how we're going to do this. I don't know if it's going to actually work, but let's try it out. So we just we FaceTimed a lot, and she would show me, around her things, and and I'd see things of interest, and I'd say, get in there a bit further. I want to have a look around that thing. And we would figure it out, and then I'd give her a bunch of tasks to do. And then she would check back in with me, like, on whatever day that worked for both of us. And then I would help her, like, she would start to rebuild the closet after emptying it all. And we would kind of walk through that together, and I'd explain why things would go on the bottom rail rather than the top rail, and whatever. And she'd be like, oh, that's, like, makes so much sense. I don't know why I didn't think of that, so it did actually work out pretty good. But it's not for everybody, because most of my clients really want me to do the hands-on bit. Like, that's the bit that's overwhelming for them.
sure.
So it is a service that can work quite well, but it's sort of a limited demographic that are willing to do the hands-on bit.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So speaking of your clients then, so process wise, so do you typically do most of it alone, where it's like, you come in and you go, there's the closet, and then I go have coffee and I see you in 2 hours? Or do you prefer, that for me as the client, that I go through the process with you? So, because is there a teaching aspect as you go?
Right.
Or
So
are those two different things?
yeah. So that all depends on what we're organizing and who the client is. So um, some people want to walk through every step of it with you because they are wanting to learn something. And anything works. I'm very adaptable. We can go with whatever. But a lot of people prefer me to do the bulk of the work. So I might, if we're doing a big space, I might pull all the contents out of that space and create all these. I do always make a bigger mess before I make it better, but I like make all these piles of different categories. And at that point, I will bring the client in and we will talk about each category. And there's always, even people that say they don't need to purge, they've already done it. There's still a natural purging process that happens because they're like, oh, that's broken. I didn't know that. And oh, I didn't even know I had that still. I hate that thing. So there is a bit of a natural purging that still happens. But in that moment, it's great actually, because not only do I get to see truly what items are important to the client, but I get to hear a little bit of their stories because it, sort of provokes some memories. So I get to know a little bit about them more. So we become more familiar. And that really helps me when I'm rebuilding the space because I have a better understanding of who they are. And that limits the amount of time they need to focus on the task, but they're still fully involved. So, I'm doing most of the muscle work. They're coming in for the decision-making process. And then often, they might still be in the house or they might go out, whatever. And then I rebuild. And then as I'm rebuilding, I usually check in with them then too. Like, is this making sense to you? So they have a lot of input. It's not like I don't ever do a job fully on what I see being the solution. They have to be very integrated, and it doesn't necessarily mean they have to do the physical work, but I need their thoughts. I need to get into their brains. So yeah, it works a number of different ways, but that's the most common. I find that people, they just sort of come in and go out and come in and go out. They don't 100% work alongside of me, but the ones that do, it's totally cool. It works really well.
Interesting. So you mentioned that, so you realized that you had this organization skill. It's something that comes very, very naturally to you. And then you also mentioned that you did some training, and you sort of did some organizational school type work. So I'd just be curious, was there something that you maybe did your way, and then you went to school and you learned a different way, and you've switched gears, or vice versa? Like, I just would love to hear about that process, from a natural, a
Yeah.
naturally organized individual.
Yes, I did find the workshops were helpful, but the more and more I did of them, I realized that I already knew all of the answers. Like that sounds terrible. Of course, I don't know all the answers, but like what I was being educated on, it was like, oh yeah, I know that. That makes sense. That's how I would do it or whatever. So they were really good for me because it was validating what I believed about something. And because prior to that, I didn't really see it as a business that I could make. It was just something I did.
Yes.
I didn't think you could turn that into a career and actually charge money for it. So when I was going through the workshops and hearing some of the stuff that I already fully understood, it was validating, and I was like, okay, yes, this is fine. I can totally launch this brand and do what I believe I can do well.
Well, hey, ultimately what they say anymore in business, it's as basic as what problem do you solve and who do you solve it for?
Yeah.
And, you hit the nail on the head. As I mentioned, I used to do cooking classes. My family owns a commercial fishery, and I kept hearing over and over and over again from people that, well, I like fish, but I'm afraid to cook it. So a lot of people would order fish when they went out to a restaurant, but they didn't cook it at home because it wasn't a protein that they were used to, because it's not as common as your chicken and your beef, so to speak. And so it's just that same thing, right? The opportunity kind of presented itself on
Yeah.
a on the platter, and it's just a matter of whether um, somebody grabs the opportunity or not. And you grab the opportunity, and look at you go. I love it. And if nothing else, that's what we want to do here with Pursuit 365, is we want to inspire people to realize that there's certain skill sets that people have and they've been blessed with. And if you really feel that calling on your heart that people need some of what you've got, then put it out there and go for it. So I commend you for doing that, and I love the fact that you're being so blessed by what you're doing and what a difference you're able to make in people's lives. And that's so beautiful.
It does feel very heartwarming that it really, the actual physical parts of organizing is just something tangible people can see, but the connection that I'm able to have with my clients, and to watch them go through their transformations and feel so much lighter about their world, like that is just, that fills me up for sure. And I love that. That's the best part of my job, is just seeing them evolve and feeling so much more content and rid of that fear of judgment. So yeah,
It's very vulnerable, right? For somebody to
yes,
reach out to you and say, you know, because as you said, right, we judge ourselves more than you
yeah,
judge, right? But it's that, right, I know my story in my brain would be, okay, come into my mess, like welcome to my mess. And that's very vulnerable, because
yeah,
for me, with the way my mom raised me, that's showing a weakness, so to speak, right?
exactly. Yes,
Um,
and it is a very intimate process, and I'm really, really aware how lucky I am that these people will let me go on that journey with them. They don't know me, right? And they invite me in for that little journey, and I never take it for granted. I know how hard that can be. So I'm
oh,
really lucky.
well, thank you for doing what you do, and for, having an impact on people's lives, because, I can honestly say, as a busy business owner and sharing with our audience here, that I'm the shover, and I know when I get into shove mode, you think that because you can't see it,
Yeah,
that it doesn't impact your life, but I still know what's behind that
it's
closed
talking
door.
to you behind
Oh,
that closed door. It's still talking to you.
it is, and it clutters my headspace. It really, really does. So I know when I have those good purges. I just did one last week because I'm preparing for a trip, and it was like, okay, time to. And you're just like, oh, you feel lighter, you feel clearer, you all the rest. So yeah, I think what you do is pretty, pretty, pretty amazing.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much for sharing your world with us, and for educating us a little bit more on what your line of work is, and that behind the scenes. So before we wrap up, I've been having fun in these Talk Wednesday chats with one question to sign off the chats with. And so the question goes as this. So, and I know you shared that you're not a public speaker, but let's just put you in that realm. And if you were to give a TED talk on nothing that you are known for, what would your TED Talk be about? And this is just a
Oh,
whole other pivot into a completely different realm of who Jennifer Illsley Hall is.
oh my gosh. I think oof, maybe like something around the word normal.
Ah,
I don't like the word normal, and I hear it all the time. And, you know, being a parent and you're always evaluating your children as they're going up through the school, you know, that's the whole society of education. The word normal, I think I would do a whole TED Talks about that and about how we need to get rid of that word out the dictionary. Yeah, the word normal is just a fear-based word, and it was just horrendous for all four of our kids to navigate the school system around, you know, excellence and you know, normal. Yeah, the word normal. Yeah, I don't know what that would look like, that TED talk, but yeah, I have a bit
well,
of
I
a
love that. I love that. I love that question, and because I love the answers. I love the answers, and I end with it because it just kind of leaves people thinking in a different realm. Part of me wants to lead with it, but then we end up in a whole other conversation. But all of the answers I've received for that question have been so brilliant, and that wow, I love that. You're onto something there. You do that, Jennifer. Oh boy. All right. So where can people find you? So share what social media platform do you prefer? Where can you reach out and find you the easiest?
Okay, so Instagram seems to be a favorite, and I'm at Deliberate Decisions. My Facebook is at Deliberate Decisions Organizing, and my website is deliberatedecisions.ca.
Perfect. Well, liberate yourselves, folks. Make a deliberate decision to reach out to Jennifer, and it sounds like she can definitely help change your life. That's for sure. Jennifer, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, getting to know you a little bit better. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you again to Leanne Miles for the generous sponsorship of this, and of course to our founder, Shelley Lynn Hughes, for giving us the opportunity to meet one another and to get to know more about what makes people tick and what people are all about. I love it. So thank you so much for your time, and happy Wednesday, everybody. Have a super day.